Hey there, Midas Canada viewers, resistors from all over the globe. Charlie Angus here from the snowy hills of northern Canada. On today's episode, we're going to look at how disinformation, conspiracy, cynical right-wing politics is killing people. Step forward, RFK Jr. Step forward, all the MAGA-style politicians who think they can feed a rage base by undermining trust in public health. And what they're feeding are the lives of innocent young people, children, family members into the vortex. So before we get to that, I just want to do some follow-up. We've had incredible response to the piece I did on J.D. Vance trying to change the subject on the tanking American economy by gaslighting Canada. What do you expect from J.D.? But also on Donald Trump and the disgraceful attempt by the Americans to pass off a Russian demand for capitulation from Ukraine as some kind of peace negotiations. And then when they got called out, they're all scrambling. It shows that Donald Trump is a total asset of the Russian state. And the question is why? Nobody has followed up on this. The evidence has been in plain sight. So we've been getting great feedback on the analysis I did on Trump's connections to dirty Russian money and the Russian state. Joe Renzi writes, Slava Ukraini. The only acceptable peace is for Russia to withdraw from every Ukrainian territory, including Crimea, and to return the thousands of Ukrainian children they've kidnapped to their families. Angie's right, if you stand with democracy, then you stand with Ukraine. Democracy cannot be rescued without us first seeing an end to the reign of Vladimir Putin and the end to the reign of Trump. Claudette writes, Merci Charlie, de croire notre unité canadienne. Merci pour ça, Claudette. Yes, I do believe in the unity of Canada, and at this time it's more important than ever. This is from Rail Worker. I'm an immigrant to Canada. My wife is an immigrant to Canada. In our careers, we have contributed significantly to Canada. We have not stagnated as a nation like Russians or Americans. Our mortgage is paid off. We travel 4 times a year to far-flung places, carrying a maple leaf everywhere we go because we're proud of our beautiful country that adopted us, naturalized us as Canadians, and we do our best to promote Canadian goodness abroad. Thank you for that, Rail Worker. Thank you for making our nation a better place. And Doherty writes, what great exposure you gave to us on Trump. It fills in the many blanks and helps us to understand the magnitude of what is in store if we can't halt the path of this destruction. Ukraine needs a strong, united G20 behind them. America is slowly awakening to the fact that they have been duped, and Canada's media needs some more objective reporting and accountability. Thank you, Charlie, for the work you do. And this is from Encore. Our greatest danger is becoming Trump's Ukraine. The West has been both naive and complicit in providing Ukraine with only enough resources to maintain a struggle against Putin rather than the means to repel his invasion and secure their sovereignty and democracy. The USA has already been identified as a failing democracy. It is time for Canada and the democratic world to provide Ukraine with the means and support to stop Putin. Based on the proposed ceasefire and peace treaty from the USA, Russia, Putin's greatest weapon of this war is Donald Trump. I agree with this issue that Trump sees us as his Ukraine. Right now, Ukraine is the line in the sand. If it falls, Trump's going to think he can do the same to Canada. This is why the boycott. This is why the work that we're doing. There's such an urgency for it. And it reminds us, solidarity. I got this from the Kafana, and a great little Ukrainian restaurant in Belleville. I love their slogan. Promote it everywhere. So if you're in the Belleville area, stop in at the Kafana and say hi. Okay, so today's program, let's give you a word of the day and a bit of a history lesson. The word is kekistocracy. May not have heard it before. It was coined in the 17th century from 2 Greek words, kekistos and kratos. And it means government by the worst possible people. Oxford Dictionary maybe is a little more polite, saying the least suitable people. Government by the least suitable, by the worst people. Hey, you know what I'm talking about. And so again, when we're looking at a kekistocracy in the United States, there are some who say, Well, yeah, they put up a lot of whack jobs and losers, but it's so that the real looting and the kleptocracy can be carried on behind the scenes where the plunder is happening. But nowhere do you see the dismal nature of putting the worst forward than in what's happening to the U.S. health system with Robert Kennedy Jr. And before we get to that, though, I want to just give you a history lesson. When on April 12th, 1955, Dr. Jonas Salk announced the discovery of the polio vaccine. And people were so overwhelmed that day. The press conference that Salk gave, I mean, they say that in courtrooms across North America, the trial stopped and they listened to the radio. People gathered in the big department stores to watch. Strangers stopped and hugged each other on the streets. People wept among strangers because they couldn't believe that they'd finally beaten polio. You know, my only memory of polio is my grandmother, Lola, came up from the Ottawa Valley to work in Timmins. She married my grandfather. She was a nurse. My grandfather broke his back underground, and my grandmother was on the injury ward for the miners then. But what she never got over was the time she spent in the children's ward, on the polio ward. I mean, she used to talk about these childhood killers, rubella, whooping cough, and polio. She talked about polio all the time. And I grew up in a generation that had no knowledge of polio. And, you know, we have Robert F. Kennedy Jr. saying that he believes that the polio vaccine caused more deaths than it cured. I mean, this is the man in charge of public health, and we see that polio is now returning. The reason I'm talking about this today is that we have news that cervical cancer rates in Canada are starting to rise again. Now, cervical cancer is a completely treatable cancer. It's maybe one of the few, and it was because of the HPV vaccine given to adolescent girls that stops cervical cancer. It's a vaccine that has a 90% efficiency rate in terms of taking on this killer. But RFK Jr. has made his living, and he's made a very good living, by taking these vaccine injury cases to court, and he has targeted relentlessly the HPV vaccine. He says that it is the worst vaccine ever invented, even though it has a 90% success rate. You know, I was thinking about RFK this week as I was hearing this disturbing news about the rise in cervical cancer rates because of a heartbreaking article written by his cousin, Titania Schlossberg, an American author and journalist. She's the daughter of Caroline Kennedy, who called RFK Jr. a predator. Titania's only 34. She's been diagnosed with fourth stage cancer, and she's using her time left in the public realm to call out RFK and the damage she's doing. She writes, "As I spent more and more of my life under the care of doctors, nurses, and researchers who are striving to improve the lives of others, I watched as Bobby cut $500 million for research into the mRNA vaccines and technologies that could have been used against certain cancers. He slashed billions in funding from the National Institute of Health, the world's largest sponsor of medical research, and he threatened to oust a panel of medical experts charged with recommending preventative cancer screenings." She goes on to write, "Hundreds of clinical trials were canceled, affecting thousands of patients. I worried about trials that were at my own shot at remission." I think Titania is trying to warn us that it is the cynicism and the incompetence of Kennedy and all his backers, who, by the way, Stephen Miller, one of Trump's worst trolls, refers to Kennedy as the crown jewel in MAGA'S White House, that the effects are going to be had in the lives of innocent people. The undermining, the making people afraid to think, well, maybe my daughter shouldn't get it because, you know, there's rumors about this vaccine. A 90% chance of killing off this cancer forever. And yet we see that the rates have not only stagnated in terms of dropping, but they're on the rise. They say that 670 women this year in Ontario will be diagnosed with cervical cancer, and 170 will die. Those are 170 needless deaths. Right now, they say 349,000 women a year are dying from cervical cancer. And as the United States pulls out its funding and international support, those women are going to be at greater risk. You know, the news on the cervical cancer situation, where we were on the path to defeating it entirely, the news comes as Canada loses its status in the global health community for being a measles-free nation. This is 30 years of public health work and effort to eradicate measles, another childhood killer that can be eradicated by the use of vaccines. And again, RFK has been relentless in his attack on measles vaccines. This been an absolute disruptor. He's been identified, as they call him, the dirty dozen of disinformation, as one of the most prolific disinformation sources on falsehoods in medicine around the globe, and he is the man in charge. But look at Canada, where Alberta had the gold standard for vaccination rates and public health measures. It's been completely undermined by Danielle Smith. We've seen a 20% drop in vaccination rates in children, and now the effects are coming home. There are more measles cases this fall in Alberta than all of the United States combined. This is an absolute colossal failure of public duty. And what it means is that you're going to have children whose lives are permanently affected. You're going to have children who die. You're going to have parents who are left with the guilt of wondering, could their child have had a better future, or that child could have been saved if they had actually just listened to public health measures rather than conspiracy and disinformation. So we have these politicians who are playing to the rage base again and again and again and going along with the disinformation. And the effects are going to be that children die. The effects are going to be that young women die. And it's completely needless. This is the danger of kekistocracy. This is the danger of MAGA. This is the danger of political cynicism interfering in public health. And it's up to us to say that our children deserve a world better than one that is governed by the least suitable and the most cynical and the most corrupt. It's time we put the run on them. So to our friends in the United States who are dealing directly with the nightmare of RFK Jr. and his MAGA minions, we say you've got to hold the line. For Canada, though, it means that we have to step up, and we have to insist that our provincial leaders step up in a bigger way. Our federal government has to step up. There's a huge opportunity right now to invite medical researchers who are being chased out of the United States to come to Canada, but that would require investments in public health. So Canada is not blameless here. Canada needs to do better. Canada can do better, and Canada will do better if we, the people, insist that we are not going to be governed by the worst. We are going to be governed by people who put the public interest first. So keep kicking at the darkness, my friends. These are tough times, but my sense is that MAGA is falling apart. We just have to be vigilant, and we have to keep going and go all the way and take that crew down. Thank you. Merci, Miigwech.